Hi, everyone, and welcome to Business Spotlight. I'm Mark Hunter, and today I have got Danae Shell of Valla. So, Danae, thank you very much for joining us today. How you doing?
I am really well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, but it's a pleasure having you. It's a pleasure having you. I'm really interested to hear your story as our audience are. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself then, and tell us about Valla, your company then?
Sure thing. I'll give you the highlights and then let you decide what you want to dive in on. So I'm Danae. I am the co-founder and the CEO of Valla. And Valla is, well, I'm hoping it's going to be the new way that all consumer legal problems get solved. And we're starting with employment law so people can handle their own legal issue, they can run their own case and get ad hoc, affordable legal advice while they're doing it. And in terms of me, my background is I'm from Tennessee. I was a software engineer, kind of self-taught computer coder, and then moved to Edinburgh, where I then worked in quite a few different startups and tech companies, and then started Valla. Not because I'm not a lawyer, my background was technology and then marketing, but because I just saw a lot of people getting mistreated at work, couldn't do anything about it, couldn't afford to get legal support, and it just kind of made me mad. and so that's why Valla exists.
Wow, incredible, incredible. And how long has Valla been in running for then?
And we founded the company in actually the day the company was officially formed a week after lockdown started. But we started working on the company. I think I left my job in summer of 2019 to start bootstrapping. I was half-time managing director of another company, half-time doing all the research and the prep work for Valla, and we closed our first funding round in late 2020.
Excellent, excellent. And so 4 years and
Yeah.
forming a business in COVID as well, such a tough time for everyone. How was that from the very beginning then during those tough times in 2020?
It was really interesting. In some ways, it suited us well, the lockdown period, because so my original co-founder Kate and I, we already knew that we wanted to start Valla, but we didn't really know what it was going to be yet. And but I had been speaking to some VCs and to some angel syndicates in late 2019, and really at that point I was just running down every lawyer I could get a meeting with, didn't matter what area of law they were in, just trying to understand what their space was like. Kate and I were doing tons of user interviews, forming up our jobs to be done, and we started to develop an idea of what we could build. And I had a pre-scheduled meeting with a VC that I had been speaking to and it was literally like the day after lockdown started. And I thought that it was just going to be like, hey, obviously we're pausing everything right now, but let's stay in touch. But instead, he said, no, everything that we've been talking about looks great. We're ready to come in for half of your pre-seed. We're happy to lead your round. Let's talk about terms, and we'll go from there. And so I registered the company, started working on the rest of the round, and spent pretty much the whole of the summer of 2020 on Zoom fundraising for Valla. And some of the other VC that came in, we were their first Zoom investment, which obviously now is really normal, but at the time was really, everybody was getting used to it. So yeah, it allowed me to focus being in lockdown. That was quite helpful actually. And we were completely remote anyway, and have stayed a completely remote company. So that always worked out as well.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I mean, taking a situation like COVID, and you know, making a positive from that, and there
Mm.
we go, and there was Vala formed and found. So fantastic, great to hear. So going back to 2019 when the idea first come around, and that's when you started looking at forming Vala. Then was there a turning point or a moment or something that happened that thought, you know what, I really want to go into business for myself, or was that even the sort of idea of going into business for yourself? Was that what you really wanted to do anyway?
So I knew before starting Valla that I wanted to run a tech startup. I had gone on this really fantastic accelerator program about 2 years before, which was designed for women in Scotland to reach board or executive level at technology companies. And they had taken us as a little cohort around to London, to the Netherlands, and we met all these fantastic women who were CEOs. And what really shook me at the time was that they were solving the same kinds of problems that I was solving as like a senior manager at my company, but just at a different scale. And I, once you kind of get to meet them and talk to them and stuff, you realize, oh, I could do this. Like it's not like this special breed of person who starts companies. It's just people who keep going and work through the problems. And so then I was like, oh, I want to run my own company because I love building teams. I love, motivating people. I love all the fun stuff around it. And so then I set it out as like a goal, and I thought, well, what do I need to achieve to be able to do this, well? I need board experience, so I joined the board of a nonprofit. I need, more budget experience over here. I need to be more in the public eye, so I started speaking more. So yeah, I really worked my way into it. I had no idea that it was Valla that I was going to start, but I knew that that was something like that was what I was aiming towards.
Amazing, amazing, yeah. And learning is very important, and you did a lot of learning to prepare yourself for becoming a business owner, and that's we're always talking about at Action Coach. We're always talking about ongoing learning. We never stop
Mm.
learning. So what? So speaking of learning, then what's been your biggest learning then since being a business owner then?
I often joke that what I have learned so far about being a good business owner is that you can take a kicking and you can get back up again. That does seem to be a very important part of the job is just keeping going. So much like I always knew that this would be hard, but I didn't know the specifics of what was going to be hard about it. And what I have learned is that it's finding the energy to control your emotions, to control your motivation, to keep going when you're having a really difficult day or when you've messed something up and you feel terrible and you have to fix it, or something has fallen through that was supposed to happen, and to not catastrophize, to not all like controlling yourself, I have learned, is actually the most important part of the job, and maintaining your energy, your focus, your enthusiasm, and building the support system around yourself to be able to do that. I had no idea that it was going to be that important, but it turns out that is the thing that I have had to put in place the most to weather the difficult times.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Mindset is so important as well,
Mm.
staying positive, but also the learnings I often feel the biggest learnings come from failure. And it's okay to
Yes.
fail. It is absolutely okay to fail. We encourage failure. Try something. So what's been your biggest challenge or maybe a difficult time
Mm.
if you'd like to tell us?
Yeah, of course. So the funding landscape that Valla started in terms of VC, angel investment, things like that, is completely different from the funding landscape we found ourselves in after, kind of April 2022, when the investment market just completely collapsed. And so it has always been difficult as a female founder to raise money. Like statistically, it's the odds are completely stacked against us because of that. But it after 2022, it layered on a whole new level of difficulty. And it's tricky as well because I'm not doing a classic B2B SaaS business that is much more off the shelf investable by big VC funds or angel syndicates or places like that. And so that combination of being a woman anyway, and then having the investment market become so much harder, and being in a non kind of standard business where I, support people directly,
Mhm.
and we use D2C as our main acquisition channel. That combination made capitalizing the business my full-time job. Like it has just been all consuming for the last 2 years. And it's really only now that we have launched a crowdfunding round and that has just completely taken off, that we're finding the investment that we actually need to get to our next stage and grow. So I think I've maybe just got it sorted in the next little while, but that has been super challenging. And in some ways, it's really good because it's made us take some risks, like adopting generative AI. We might not have adopted it so completely had we not needed to make some big moves in order to make sure that we kind of stayed the course. But yeah, it certainly has been challenging.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that challenge. I'd like to go back to your previous answer from the question before. You talked about having a strong network. And is there anyone from a strong network that you've got or that inspires you or that has coached you or has really made a difference to you and helped you running Valla, or even before? Is there anyone
Mm.
from books or anything that you've read, anyone at all that really inspires you or has inspired you?
Oh goodness. I mean, so many like within my life and within books and things. I'm a big believer. There's a fantastic book. It's not directly for business owners, but there's a fantastic book called $1 Trillion Coach. And it's about this man who coached a lot of the like the Google founders and like LinkedIn founders and people like that. And I think his approach to supporting people was incredibly empathetic, incredibly um, open. And I found that so reassuring because that is more my style. And to hear that that was behind a lot of the kind of hard, businesses out there, I found really reassuring. And it's a wonderful book about how to be a great coach and be coached, which I think is super important. Um, so yeah, I love that book. And I have a weekly mastermind, and I really highly recommend masterminds for business owners because I get so much out of it. So a mastermind is basically a peer accountability and peer support session. And I do it with two other CEOs every Friday morning, 8 to 9. Um, Never miss. And I think we've done it for about 2.5 years now. And they're really like my board and my support group. And we do a document where every week we update what do we want to achieve this coming week? What did we get done from the last time? Mark ourselves against that. How did the week go? And then we go through the three of us and we'll challenge each other. We'll say, I'm not sure that that assumption's correct, actually. I think you could be doing it this way. Or we'll support each other. And honestly, I think it's transformational for business owners because it's very lonely. You can't talk to your team about everything. And sometimes like just having that specific role, only other people with that specific role can really understand it. So they are my weekly inspiration.
Excellent, excellent. It sounds like you've got a strong network of people around you, and it certainly is needed, yeah. And because it can get lonely at the
Mm.
top there, as a CEO. Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Um, Danny, it's been fantastic having you. I've got just a couple of questions before we go. I was just wondering for our newsletter, is there any sort of offering that you would like to promote just now and tell us about then?
Of course, yeah. So we are crowdfunding at the moment and it's going super well. It's so exciting. People have really, I think we've captured the imagination of a lot of people. So Valla, you can now buy shares in Valla just for the next, like it's going to be maybe 10 days left or something like that. We're just figuring out when we're going to close it. But it's on the Cedars platform, SEEDRS. And yeah, you can go and check it out. People can invest from £10. It's an early stage investment, so obviously there is risk attached, and Cedars um, will put that all over it. But I think it's just so exciting how well people have responded to it and how much support we're getting there. So if anybody wants to check us out, go and look on Cedars.
Fantastic, and all the best with that as well. Amazing, amazing, Danny. My last question for you, and again, thank you so much for joining us today. But my last question is, For anyone who's watching this, is there any advice that you would give them? Or is there maybe any advice that you would give yourself back in 2019 and 2020, when you first started out? So this question about anyone going into business for themselves, what
Yeah.
advice would you give them then?
Yeah, the thing that I do tell people is there is nothing special about those of us who have done it to any degree. So I'm still early stage, but at least I've kind of gotten to a stage. There's nothing really special except for the willingness to keep going and the willingness to keep learning. I think that that is the only thing that separates people who are running a business from people who decided to stop running a business or never started. Any of us who have a capability to keep going and keep learning will be great business owners. And so I would very strongly encourage you to, you know, take the risk.
Absolutely. Take the risk and the willingness to keep going and keep learning. I think that's a very powerful message to anyone. Yeah. Danny, thank you so much for those words of wisdom, and thank you very much for sharing your business journey and story with us. It's been great having you on Business Spotlight.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Mark.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. And thank you very much for watching. You've been watching Business Spotlight and Mark Hunter. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.